que cuida da terra. Terra deserta, vou reconstruir o chão. Espalha a vida da floresta, prepara pra plantação.
Soil dynamics is just next level. It's crazy. It is crazy how little we know, and how much we pretend we know. Because I mean, it's so big. Reality is so big that sometimes we just look like stupid people that think it's so clever because we will be able to measure something that is inside the head of the pin of something that is happening there. But the whole world is actually, there is all those other things. And then there is all those relationships between all those other things that give rise to new processes and products and substances. Man, it's crazy. It is nuts. So how do we do it?
Does it make you wanna learn more, or just not really care anymore? I mean,
no. For me, I'm addicted to learning. I'm enrolled in 5 courses at the same time for the last 10 years, and it's like, oh, a new course I'm on, a new course I'm on. Because man, there is so many points of view, and the beautiful thing is, like, I have to look at it. I actually been thinking about that. If I want to go back into that course and kind of redo it, or at least have a look at my notes and see why is he saying that humus doesn't exist, and then try to remember, because from his point of view, what he's saying is true, and that's kind of the thing is that there is all those points of view. You know, there is I mean, to bring an analogy, we can go water, earth, air, and fire. And all those things have a view of something in the middle, right? It's how it works. So this guy might say, and you know, if this is a 4-color circle, I'm not sure if the colors come out well.
Not at all, but it's okay. We can imagine.
No colors at all.
There are 4 different colors.
Yeah, fair enough. So imagine that each one of those corners is a color. And then if you go, hey, you here, what are you seeing? And he goes, I'm seeing a purple circle, or I'm seeing a purple curve. And then they're like, oh man, nuts, it's not purple, it's red. And then they'll go, are you guys nuts? It's blue. And then let's go to war and prove that this shit is like that. So now imagine that instead of 4, which is those 4 ecological processes that moves into each other, you have 12 planets. So now you have 12 points of view of exactly the same thing, and each one of those things give a different quality to it. We have a word that is organized, like we have you as an individuality, right? Or God, or you know, there is something that is one planet. And then we go to 2, which is now there is a polarity of right and wrong. And then we go to 3, so there is something that actually meets in the middle here, which is not just, you know, there is another quality here in the middle. So there is right, there is wrong, and there is something that is in the middle that's maybe. And then we go into 4 with our, you know, nature is expressed in 4 within those processes. And then we go into 7 in the planets. And then we go into 12, which is the constellations. So now put all those layers together, impacting each other. How many variables, how many individuals can we have once we go 3, and then we go 4, and then we go 7, and then we go 12, and then we got a human being incarnating that is passing through the 12 constellations, the 7 planets, the 4 ecological process, the 3 folds, the polarity, to get into the individual. Does that make sense? How complex is this word for us to then go and say, if you do that, this will always happen on something that is alive. That's what I'm trying to get. There is no one single thing that if we all do, we're gonna get there. Because of this complexity, this bigness of the thing. So what we have to think is, which one of those spheres are we going to work on? How can we start? I mean, can we work with all of them? And yes, we can work with all of them. And can you work with yourself?
Barely.
Barely. Very challenging. But it's part of the game. I mean, this is the ultimate game, is to improve ourselves, right? Is to get better. 2, can you understand polarities? Let's go. So the polarity right and wrong. Do you understand what it does? Does right and wrong actually exist? It doesn't, because they are just polarities. So they are polar forces. It's a tug of war. That's polarity, right? Plus minus, one going towards the other. So let's say there is a potential. Oops. There is a potential for 100% right or wrong.
There isn't 100% wrong or 100% right, right?
Why not? So just think. In a polarity, for a polarity to exist, you have to have 2 poles.
So if one does not exist at all, it means that the other will not exist at all, right?
Exactly.
I remember, yeah.
You can't be 100%, because if there exists 100% wrong, then by definition, right does not exist. If right does not exist, then wrong does not exist. They cancel each other off. So if humans actually understand just that saying, they will stop being so cocky, and they will start to be open for an opinion that goes against their own opinion. Because they know now that it's impossible here to be 100% right. So once we understand,
I want to use that in practice. I want to actually experience that, because I'm learning this on a mental level, but not on an experience.
Okay, so let's see. So tell me something that is your biggest truth. It can be anything. Let's go something simple. It's like, if there is something that, I mean, all your life you grew up listening that this is how it is. You went to school and they told you that that's how it is. You went to uni and they told you that's how it is. And so something, the most basic, that this paint, that they used a paint called white, and this thing is white. And then somebody comes and say, no, this is red. And can you handle that? Can you handle that this can also be red? So if we talk in colors, there's people that can't see colors, or they mix up colors. I'm not that good with that science. And you say, hey, this is, I don't remember the colors that they mix. And you're going to go, hey, this is blue. Can you say that this is blue? And then the person say, I can only see green. Is he wrong? So what we have to understand is that you don't have to believe me that it's green. You can continue to believe that it's blue. But you have to accept that from somebody else's point of view, this is green. That's it. Walk away. So
acceptance is a huge part of this.
Yeah. And then, first we have to tolerate, because usually it's like that. It's blue. No, it's green. It's blue. No, it's green. I'll kill you. And that's the animalistic way of doing it. kind of thing. It's like without any control of our emotions. It's just like instinct comes, gun, shoot, and then you think later what happened. So first we need to overcome that stage. Is that tolerate that, and that is all throughout the world. Tolerate the black, tolerate the white, tolerate the woman, tolerate the gay, tolerate the invasive species, tolerate the green colors. We're still moving into that tolerance. Can we allow something that is different than us to also exist? Can we tolerate? It's like I don't care. Or if there is a being, there is a woman or a gay or a black or doesn't matter that we can't tolerate. We see that person, we cross the road. That's the beginning. It's better than seeing that person and punching in the face or starting an argument. So that's the beginning of tolerance. Okay, I tolerate to exist, but I don't want to know anything about it. And then we move to the next stage, which is okay, I accept. Okay, people are different. I accept. I don't relate to them, but I'm not gonna cross the road. I'm gonna say good morning, and I'll go, yeah, have a good day, and it's genuine. And then we move to the next one, in which not only we accept, but we start to be interested. We start to see, hey, yes, it's a woman and I'm a man and I have a problem with woman, whatever, da, da, da. But hey, she's still a human. And then we start to connect at the human level, and then we start to see those other levels. So these are those steps for us to understand that, and according to Schauberger, I reckon the maximum that we can do is 96% one way or another. Theory, we can be 96% right, which is pretty good. But it's not gonna be the rightness of the whole wide world. And then with that, we start to move into. So if these polarities don't exist, what do? They give us a range of movement, right? And we can go that to weather as well. You have a range of weather in which life moves, right? And let's say if you are a soil scientist and you've done 30 years of research on, I don't know, mycorrhizal fungi, on the topic of mycorrhiza, you could be closer to here. But on the topic of soil, you might be very much closer to here. And on the topic of water, and on the topic of a million billion other subjects. So there is a range in which we start to operate. And we gotta be aware, where are we? Right and wrong is it's an easy one for us to understand. I mean, that's why I love the one in the middle, which is maybe. You start to use that word. When somebody says something that you feel like, just go, maybe. That's the beginning of the tolerance. Because you're not gonna press the trigger. You might reach for the gun, but you just go maybe, and you pay attention that, hey, something happened here, I better walk away. And then you start. So, and that's not my thing. I learned that on holistic management. The power of maybe. It's amazing. It's ridiculous. Because what is that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that my next course now is gonna be with the holistic management course, and the next course after that will be hopefully one that you will be doing. Are you preparing? Are you cooking anything for us?
Yes, I actually have a new course coming for this year on syntropic market gardening. Because to me, the step to go from zero or close to zero to agroforest is too big. It's too big. It's too much investment, it's too much time, it's too much compromise for a relatively small return into food, in small food return. Lots of knowledge return, lots of activity return, lots of good time return, good people, like amazing people. But actual belly full, very little, because it's a huge learning curve. So I'm designing a course in which it's going to be all of the syntropic principles in a semi-automated or potentially not fully, it can never be fully automated, market garden veggie production system. So anybody with 5 square meters can get a return on the investment, and can start to engage in a deep and meaningful way on what it takes, and the complexities involved. Before we put a plant, that will take 10 years to show up, what it is, and ta ta ta. So yeah, I will be probably starting in February or sorry, March or April, more like April, I'm thinking. And then for next year, I will do one just about soils. Just to continue here, because this is important. So now we understand that the word that we play on, so the word that we act, really, that we live, is not a polar word. It's not right and wrong. It's not one and two, even though that gives us a boundary. But it's a word of threefoldness, meaning there is a quality in the middle that we live in that. And we are always kind of in this, we are trying to find a dynamic equilibrium, but we are always kind of moving. There is no static equilibrium in living systems. If you are static, in an equilibrium state that is static, you are dead. End of the story. It's like your heart is static. That's it. Come back next time. So in living systems, there is a desire to come into a balance, but there is always a little something that it's moving. So there's always a desire for the heart to be at 66 beats per minute. I don't know. But it's 67, it's 65, it's 73, because it is responding to what I'm eating, what I'm talking, what I'm doing, all those inputs that I'm getting I'm receiving that. Even when we are sleeping, the heart rate oscillates because we are dreaming, or because we are inhabiting a different sphere, and the heart has to regulate that. So it has a desire to just be in this to two, but it never is, or it is for very short periods of time. So we are navigating into that. So that's those threefoldness. So that's how we kind of live, how we have to improve ourselves by working into that. And then the fourth, which to me is the ecological processes, if we want to put it in a more practical language. But to me, this is the elemental world. This is how nature works, right? Nature is always moving into 4 dynamic states of earth, water, air, and I'll put warmth because it's more subtle than fire. It's warmth is something that we've got inside of us, and this you can go that we are going from more material, right? Earth is solid, is heavy, is unconscious in a sense, to a more spiritual. Or this is the polarity of gravity, and this is the polarity of levity. The question that I think was Newton asked when the apple hit his head, he goes, why did it fall? And then he started to talk about gravity. He should have asked, how did it get there in the first place? So we are forgetting that there is a levity force as well. So, and warmth is the bridge between the material world and the spiritual world, right? When you feel warm inside, because you are excited, you got enthusiasm for life. So this is now in this realm That's not the realm of matter. That is not a, as science likes to prove, a super small warmth atom. It's not, so it's moving into that. So what's important here then is to start to understand those things. How is life going from one into the other? How is things, and then goes back and forth. How are those processes happening? What are those transitions? So then with those ecological processes, we start to work with the elemental world, the gnomes, the I think here is the sylphs, here's the salamander. Those elementals, they really emerge when the different kingdoms, because these are different kingdoms as well. Huh? So earth is the mineral, water is the plant, air is the animal, and warmth is the human kingdom. And those elementals emerge when the different kingdoms interact. And so we need to be understanding that this is the process of the root, of the leaf and stem, of the flower, of the fruit and seed, which goes back into the earth for life to continue.
Is this biodynamic stuff?
That is biodynamic, that's alchemical stuff. It's something that came before biodynamics. But biodynamics interpreted it and takes it to the next level. I mean, biodynamics is about the spiritualization of agriculture. And so biodynamic is really also taking this back into the individual and the individual back to here. So it's once we as an individual which is free decides to work with nature that is not free but is wise or has wisdom, basically we create an agroforest. It's something that we take nature's wisdom, not a part of it, but a whole wisdom, how it operates, how one thing balances the other, and how things moves and morphs into the other through plants, because plant is the being that does that. It connects everything, is the thing that it's life. So we do that, but because we've got the freedom, we can do things that nature cannot do, like get a plant from one plant for each country in the world and bring it together in this piece, in this point in time, and on this piece of land. Nature can't do that. I mean, it can, but over eons and eons and eons, it's a slow process. We can go, no, I'll fly there, I'll go there, I'll give a call to George and say, can you send me some of that? And Anthony, can you do this for me? I bring all those resources together and I go, boom. This is not a natural process. We have to understand that an agroforest is not a natural process. It follows nature's wisdom. It is about the wisdom of nature, or how those relationships are created, but it's not natural. It's a human process. It's a human natural process kind of thing. So through our freedom, we can do amazing things. We can go to the moon. We can destroy the planet. It's the same symptom for the root cause of the problem, right?
So shall we accept that we're not very natural as human beings? I mean,
I mean,
what's the most natural way to live?
we are that much natural. We are that much natural. We are you know, our body, it's natural in a sense. Our water body, our fluids, it's natural. It's kind of, it happens that in nature. Our emotions is natural, meaning we share that with everything. But this bit, it's not natural. This bit is our own. You know, my myself, my spirit embryo, my, something that is the element in me that is permanent, that is not temporary, and that goes on a bigger thing is, do you believe or do you understand in reincarnation? If you don't, in my understanding, you have a problem because you only got a few more years to live and that's it. If you do, then there is something that is not temporary, right? So when we think about a plant, any plant, you put it in the ground, it develops roots. Let's go for an annual plant. It's easier to visualize that. Just think of an annual plant, a sunflower, or anything, hemp, whatever you like it. Doesn't matter. It goes. You've got a seed and you put soil, seed. First thing that happens, roots, right? And then leaf. And this has a rhythm. Every plant has a rhythm. And then flower. And then, fruit or seed. It's a sunflower here. So now we've got our seeds beautifully organized in the middle. And then that's it. After 3, 4, 5 months, sunflower capuch. No more. Did the sunflower die?
In a way, it can live on, right? And multiply.
The sunflower doesn't exist. Sunflower is an idea, right? So that seed then goes back into here, and the sunflower comes again, and again, and again, and again. But every time it's changed. Every time it's changed. Because that sunflower experienced rain, they experienced wind, they experienced, aluminum in the soil, experienced hot and whatever. It had a life. It was alive. It collected information. And in that seed, there will be something that remains. So generation 2, now it's different than generation 1.
It has not changed its genome or phenotype, right? It changed its phenotype.
It doesn't matter. It has changed. Full stop. Stay with that because it can be phenotype. It can be a bacteria that got inside the. Man, the world is infinite. It changed. That's it. We don't know what, but something has changed. Some information. Maybe it has collected that this year rained more. That's all. I don't know. And then it keeps moving. So that sunflower, the sunflower will never be a rose, but it's always a new sunflower. George will never be Anthony, but it's always a new George if you understand in reincarnation. So this is a reincarnating process, right? And incarnate is just, carne goes into meat. So, but if you don't think incarnation as a meat process, it's just a immaterialization process. So you go from something that is, immaterial. The seed is immaterial, like the sunflower bean is not hidden in the seed. It needs to go into the soil and then it becomes fertilized by the sun forces, by the earth forces, and then they connect back into the archetype, the sunflower idea, and the sunflower idea, yeah, that's how you go, boom, and then boom, boom, off it goes. Too much for a
Nature
Saturday morning.
Hmm?
Too much for a Saturday morning.
No, I like it. You caught our attention. We're never gonna get bored with you.
So I'm not too sure how I got to here, but this element here is the sunflower element, is the individual element, right? And there is something here that is permanent. There is something in here that is permanent. Over here, everything just keeps moving. So the natural world that we see, in theory, doesn't exist because it just keeps renewing itself. It kind of goes, it exists and then, but there is something that is permanent, and that is this element here, that we continue that movement. So, and this is a burning process. So after the fruit and seed, for that to go back into here, into the earth, for the really seed to form, is a burning process. So imagine all of this information that this sunflower has collected over its 3 months of life. Now, all of this needs to be digested and condensed, let's say, into an embryo, into something that will have life again. So that is a burning process that then turns into ash. And then we are back into the mineral. Turu, 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 turu. So this is a very important question, is incarnation. Because and I'm not saying that, I'm not defending that it exists, but to me, it makes sense that it does, and I really hope it does. Because then we have continuity, right? And if you think that the game is a long-term game, is an agroforest game, it's a long-term game, right? Then you behave differently than if you think that life ends after 3 months, wouldn't you?
So we don't have to make this. We don't have to make a perfect life now. We can relax and make a perfect life next life.
Look, I mean, if you're in my mind,
I don't need to stress about it, right?
it's totally up to you what you want to do. There is no right and wrong. It's about you and where you want to go. So is your agroforest. It's about you and where you want to go. Do you want to eat mangoes, or do you want to eat nuts, or you just want a nice? It's about you. This is a reflection of you. So if you want to sit down in Cancun drinking pina colada and watching the ladies pass by, so be it. If that's gonna help you to develop you, so
I really prefer, I really prefer the backbreaking, turning manure and planting and working my ass off, to be honest.
isn't it? So the world is this polarity. At times that is the best, but at times it's good to just sit down and drink a bit of pina colada and watch a bit of football. That's what I do. I just love football. So Sunday afternoon I watch a little bit of football or whatever. So it's part of how can we engage in that process. But the process is a process of development. So if all I do is sit and watch the waves and do nothing and just eat Doritos, what's the point? Sure, we're going to reincarnate, but we're going to be left behind. And there is a point that, I mean, if we're going to really want to go into Steiner stuff and occult science, there is a point in time where an organism, needs to go, see you later. You're too heavy now. I want to keep rising. So just to really throw this panels in the work there, the whole theory of Darwin, that there is this kind of linear progression, and there is, the apes, and then all of a sudden there is a human. Does it make sense? There is another theory in which all of those beings were once an idea, the idea of the free human being. So I've got an idea, I've got an enthusiasm, I'm going like, what about that? And there is an idea that there will be one day a free being that can turn to God and go, see you later. There is that possibility. And that is not easy to accept. But in theory, God created a being that can turn to him and go, oh, I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to do something else. But equally as powerful is when we understand as a free being and we go, actually, man, that's a nice pathway. I'm going to work towards that. So the idea is to have a free human. And human is a stage. We are not the only humans or have ever been the only humans. Humans are a stage where we become self-conscious. It's a stage of development in organisms. I don't know if you want to, not material organisms, but in evolution of beings, there is a stage where that being becomes self-conscious. I can say, I am. No other being can say, I am. Right? So, idea, we want a human being. And then the idea develops like we do. I want an agroforest. And you have this beautiful agroforest, and we're going to sit and have coconut and ta-ta-ta-ta. And then the reality starts to shift, and you go, oh, but I can't even grow coconut, or I can't get the seeds of the coconut, or my soil is too X and Y for coconut. And then you start to morph. So there is an idea of a free human. And in that process, things happen because there is external forces. The tractor breaks down, or the wife says, hey, I want to do this, or the dog or the daughter, or. And so this is certainly not a linear development, but more like a ta-ta-da, ta-da-ta-da, ta-da, and then man, it goes everywhere for us to get to that. But in this development, we have to drop qualities. Right? We had to drop, especially now, in the stage that we are now, we are trying to drop the animalistic qualities. We've dropped, we went beyond instinct. Some of us. There's some there that are still very instinctual. And it's very interesting. Living here in Brazil, unfortunately, the poor people that don't get to go through the process of development, a very good one, they actually live a much more animalistic life, much more. They are always on the edge. Is that a noise? There is a gun, or it's like they don't think twice. It's like react, boom. It's different. So we are trying to lose that. But in the beginning, we were that. If we think about, not only think about the aggressiveness, but looking at the indigenous cultures, they are all based on kind of instincts and intuition. They were not free, right? They were human animals. So they were in that transition of separating the animals from the humans, separating the flower from the fruit. Is in that process of separation in which the human being says, for me to grow, I need to stop being an animal. I have to drop the animal out of me. Not because it's not important. It's still, we've got a million, I don't know how many animal cells or plant cells within us. It's still part of our nature. But in our development, we need to drop that. So there is never a chimpanzee that will turn into a human. They don't have that capacity. There is nothing human in a chimpanzee apart from 90 whatever % of the genome. The genome is is this level of information. It's just a part of it. It doesn't determine a lot of things apart from this, that my hair will be this color and this shape. It doesn't mean much more because everything else is impacted by these higher forces. So we got to drop that animal and continue to evolve. So if you're going to drop that animal and continue to evolve, watching the surf, great, you're evolving. If you're not, then you're there. And after a few incarnations, after a few eons of development, there is a point where, this continues. Humans, in theory, I'm not that capable, but human is not the last stage. In theory, there are many hierarchies above us. So the next stage is the angel and the angelic stage, and then the archangelic state, and then to the thrones, cherubim, and then.
What's the last bit?
It keeps going.
What's
The hierarchies and hierarchies. So that's the thrones.
fronts?
Thrones. There is the curiosities. There is a whole range of hierarchical beings that exist according to Rudolf Steiner and other spiritual scientists. So we are in the process of development, as Steiner put it, to become God. Can you picture that, or is it too big?
Wow, we have potential. I thought I didn't have a lot of potential in this, but we've got stuff to do.
So that's it. So we got stuff to do. So we have to just get on with the job, and each one has their own job and their own pathway and their own process of, what kind of God are you?
The god of pina colada and looking at good women, or like George, like turning the compost and the manure.
Yeah.
I don't think
So,
I'm.
so just to give you a picture of what a God might be, here for us, the only things that we can only create things by doing, right? Imagine that everything you thought or everything you think becomes. That's what our God does. So ultimately, we gotta work to stop thinking shit. It's not just the doing. We gotta go all the way to actually, being able to use our thinking powers proper. So there is work to be done. But that's kind of the game. So if we, as a free being, choose, because we've got the choice, nobody's going to force us, not to develop ourselves, once, and that's the bad news, sorry to tell you, once it gets to the stage of, right, now the human beings have evolved to be angels. And what do angels do these days? Angels look after human beings because that's part of the game. As we evolve, we look after the one comes before or after. So who is coming after us? The animals.
The
The animals. So
animal.
when we move into angel hierarchy, the animals move into the human hierarchy. And they're gonna do all the shits that we've been doing, and we're gonna have to look after them. So learn about looking after them here already.
So reverse, if we take it reverse, in order to become angels, maybe you have to start looking for the animals in order to upgrade as a human consciousness, maybe.
Yes, so you have to understand, where, in my thinking, where are those animal qualities that we all have? We all have,
Uh-huh.
where are they, and can we evolve them? can we become free? Can we go, a very simple example. Can we go from chocolate cake? Chocolate cake! Oh! Can we go from that into chocolate cake? Oh, not today, thank you. And life goes on. Or can we go chocolate cake? Just one slice today. Rather than the whole cake in an afternoon because it was an emotional afternoon or whatever. So, I mean, that's a very easy one to do it. But another one is when you see a human being, and that's the most difficult one, which is quite different than you because one is Russian and the other one is American, or one is black and the other one is white, or one is male, the other one is female, one is in this polarity, the other is in the other polarity. Can we get to that and go, we are both humans? Shall we have a chat and see how life can be better for both of us? Because there is always a third place in the middle. There's always something in the middle that my needs and your needs will be met because ultimately we are both humans that have those needs. And life is not about competition as we see it, but it's much more diversity and cover cropping. To round that up. So,
Yeah.
long story short, if
Uh-huh.
you don't do the work, it's your own problem and you will stay behind. It doesn't mean that you have just one incarnation to do it. There's, many, many incarnations to do it. But if you stay behind, then you become,
The sunflower.
sorry, no. I mean, you become retarded.
Goat.
but not retarded as we see the human beings that have mental issues. Not retarded in that sense, but retarded in terms of, because I actually think a lot of them is actually they are moving, they are going to help us to solve lots of problems because they have those, we have to understand a lot of those people with ADHD and more into the spectrum that they are still functional. They've got some interesting superpowers. So it's definitely not a disability. We have to understand, how to help them to develop those powers. But what I'm talking here is actually a state of retrograde that we have not pushed forward. And then if you have not pushed forward, you become the stone to make us fall over. So you become, I don't want to say a bad being, but you become a being that goes against evolution. And a being that goes against evolution is actually very important because the ones that will continue the evolution, they need the reminder that it is possible to go against it. And so then it gives us strength. So when we see something bad happening, sure, there will be all the emotional things, but if we can actually become a human and go, right, that's not the pathway I want to follow. I want to follow this pathway that requires that much work, that much consciousness on, the detail. And you probably heard that the devil is on the detail, but so is God on the detail. So it's, what we need to do is work on the little things. It's not, oh, I'm going to donate $1 million to the poor children in Africa. That's meaningless. That is truly meaningless in this development. It's the little day-to-day things. It's the little, every single second becoming ever more present, ever more conscious, ever more aware of what we are actually doing. Because the more we give our attention to what we are doing, the better we're gonna be creating the world that goes in that direction. If that makes sense. All right, George is sleeping already. Oh, George, come on.
A question before George. You said we have this Darwinism theory, and there is another theory that somehow opposes to that. I don't understand how, like, the opposition is that we didn't become humans from the apes, but where did we become from? Like, how did human consciousness this consciousness that I can choose, how it came from this other theory that you described?
Yeah, yeah. Look, good question, and I don't know if I'm ready to give you the right answer. I mean, we're running out of space here. I'm just gonna look, and I might be not saying the right thing, but I'll give it a go because those things are big. I mean, we conceive time as going like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we only understand that time goes from t1 linearly to t100, then it makes sense to have a development in time of life that goes from, whatever, the simple animals simple, that keeps getting more complex into the birds and the mammals or whatever. And then all of a sudden, here there is a human that emerges out of this, life development, this complexification process. A human evolves almost out of chance, right? There was an ape that one day, I don't know, did, oh, banana, and talked, and everybody was like, oh, banana. And then for whatever reason, the banana guy met the banana girl, and now they started, because they could communicate and nobody else, and they started the first monkey human. It's like a boom, something happened, and oh, here is a human. This is the material way of thinking or of progressing, kind of thing. But if you conceive that there is also another, and that's really cool, another time that goes from the future to the past, let's say, or to the present at least. Everything needs, yeah, sorry, let me. So here we've got I think it might be more understandable. So time as we think we know, and we had a development of the human there. And here we have a time that comes from, this is future, this is past, and this is present. I don't know why I'm using colors. You can't see colors. You are colorblind. This is blood.
I can see actually now.
Present. So here, you are here. All right? You are here. So
We are here.
me here.
We are here. We're here and now.
And you are, whatever, 40 years old, and you have had all of this. So you've grown to be who you are. But there is also a human here that is 50 years old that wants an agroforest. So now we've got something that is coming from the future into the present. Right? You want an agroforest, so now you have an image of the future. It's an agroforest. It might not be the precise picture, or it might be the precise picture. Depends how well connected you are to your future self, let's say. And then you bring that into the present. So there is the human idea here. That's how it's going to go. But for its development there, and I don't know the drawing, I haven't really thought about it. For that human here, it needs to drop rather than it moves, because that human here then comes as an idea of your agroforest of the human here. And then there is the development of that human, not the development of the plant that by chance gave rise to a human because, the butterfly farted or whatever. No, there's the idea of the human. which might be, if I had a clay, imagine a clay ball, and you have the idea of the square. So the square is in the circle. Just use your imagination. So you've got a circle, and you have the idea square. The idea square, it's in the circle, right? And now we have to figure out how we're gonna go from circle into square. And let's say for that, we need to cut the corners. I have a ball here, and then I go, I reckon, no, I've got the image of my square. If I cut this side off, I got closer to a square, right? So I went from circle, if you can see, I went from a circle into a cube.
Okay.
Because it's three-dimensional. But let's say, I'm not gonna draw it. So a sphere and a cube. Use your imagination. Right, so for me to get from here to there is a few steps, right? And step number one, I cut one side of it. So meaning I drop. Bleh. Should have gone to drawing school. So here, second step, I've cut it, and this bit dropped. So let's say me as a human, as a sphere, as one with everything, now have dropped the plants out of me, or the minerals out of me. The mineral consciousness that is always so predictable. It follows a law no matter what. It must be dead, right? So I drop this. Now I'm not dead anymore. Let's say. And then we go into the next one, which was like that. And I cut this other bit. Boom. So now I cut the plants out of me. Right? So I'm getting there. I'm becoming a human. And then we went into the next stage, which we only had this. It was basically like that. A bit round. And then I cut this bit. Boom. And then finally, I cut this other bit. Boom. So it's a process. Here, in this process, we've got a process of layering. Right? So we're increasing complexity by layering. Right? Here, it's by forming. Rather than clay is just beautiful. Pity I don't have it. With clay, you can get a little bit of clay and create a square or a cube or whatever by putting little bits of clay on top of little bits of clay. Or you can get a hole and actually morph it. So this process comes from the outside in, right? I'm putting something on top, I'm putting layers on top. This process, the cube is inside. It goes from the inside out. So there is those two forces always operating. So the plant, so there is the growth force, the air and water force, where all plants are just going, growing. But there is something on the outside that is just molding. So the sunflower archetypal molding being says, okay, because if everything was just growth, would be just circles everywhere. And you can see that plants tends towards circle. I mean, life tends towards circle. But there is something from the outside that once that circle is growing, it's growing, gonna hit something that circle now, instead of being round, becomes something like that. Because something from the outside said, don't grow here. Does that make sense?
And that thing that is invading is coming from the future, or like how it's related to this one?
Coming from the future, it could be. I don't know. It's coming from the future idea. Let's say it's coming from the archetype. I mean, because that relationship to time, which is, are we're talking here this polarity. I reckon in reality it falls apart. I think time, it's, I don't know what it is, but so there is something that is permanent. It's something that is the core of that being, that sunflower being, that holds the expansion.
Holds expansion. Okay.
So there is this force that is expanding in theory in all directions, and then there is something that goes no. It's like putting if we've got our hands going as a circle, but then there is a glove that comes and it just goes whoop. Okay. Not sure if that image works. So growing as a circle, growing still as a circle, but then you start to see the glove coming in, and then the circle now finds form, finds an individuality. So you went from generic into something specific. So there is two ways of going from generic to specific. There is building it up, and there is molding it. And dropping things. So that other point of view is that there is the idea of the human that is contained. I mean, I went and visited there is an amazing artisan here. He gets like a huge block of timber and just carves it, and create these beautiful images. And I go, he must have such a clear picture in his mind of what he wants, because it's like precision. It's like little heads and little Y's, and his so if you can see that image is already inside the piece of timber, and he just then molds to expose it. Makes sense. So there is this human idea and excitement that we know we're only going to be eons ahead. So there is this idea and excitement of your agroforest that that only in 5, 6, 10 years time will be that image of you walking, maybe harvesting a banana or an apple or a pistachio, or having the goats, or walking with your kids, or just laying watching the sky. Whatever image you have of your agroforest is where we are moving towards, right? So it exists, not now, but it exists in the future, right? So now this future, so it's coming to you. You are kind of bringing it here. So there is this other current that then give us the will, give us the not only, but a lot of the times we do things is because we want to go somewhere or we want to get something. So what motivates our actions is the future, right? You are not growing an agroforest because you want to feed your grandparent that died 10 years ago, right? We want an agroforest because we want a better life. We want our kids to know. We want the world, or we want to move forward. So the future actually is what moves us here. Having those ideas, having that concept, and then it molds. Of course, God perhaps have a much better picture of what he wants to create. But even a God cannot stop external forces coming and going, hey, here's a bump on your square because I kicked it or whatever, because the cat jumped on the table and dropped it on the floor. So now this is not going to be, you're still going to work on it, but now there will be a little dent in there forever. And that's okay. So you're going to have an idea of an agroforest, and in that pathway, that idea, it becomes better. We are better than what the gods have thought because of those external forces, because they've added things to us that the gods couldn't or didn't or whatever. So your agroforest will go through that same process. You're going to have an idea, which is bananas every 3 meters with an eucalyptus or a poplar and an apple, and they will be so beautiful. And you're going to do a presentation, you're going to do a YouTube video on, the spacings, and in 3 years, and in 5 years, and I'm good. And then reality is going to go, man, that apple that you've planted every 3 meters, sorry to tell you, but the leaf cutter ant came over and it's dead. But the persimmon seed that you planted beside it, it's growing and it's doing really well. So in 10 years' time, that agroforest will be kind of a better idea than what you could have thought. And that's the beauty of this process. But we have to allow it. You cannot go, no, Apple, you have to leave for sure. You costed 75 euros. You are, your surname is, Princess Golden Mary, whatever. And I'm going to kill everything that comes around you because you must leave. Then you are not allowing this thing to become better than you thought. So we're going back into square one of accepting that, hey, there is something bigger coming along and playing the game.
Thank you very much. I don't know if I got an answer though.
What was the question?
How is this hypothesis opposing the Darwinism hypothesis that we became from apes?
So Darwinism is moving in that way, that the apes developed into humans.
Okay.
This other one is that we humans had to drop the apes. So here, let's say the human as the square, right? And the cube. So for Darwin, the cube emerged by chance because of all of those layers that came over time, came in a particular way because of whatever, by chance, it created a cube. So that's a process. By chance, humans were developed from apes. There was a chance that the most developed ape in the ape world, kicked the rock and said, fuck. And that was the beginning of language. Something stupid like that. And that was it. That was the beginning of the human being. And that's Darwin theory in the nutshell, more or less. This other theory is like, no, there is a human being being developed with those characteristics to be one. We want a being that's going to be free. It's not by chance. There is this plan. There is a plan. And to get there, instead of putting bits on top, we carved it. So we remove things. So here the square was, so here there was nothing, and the square was built with layers. Here there was everything, and the square was carved.
Okay.
Maybe that might be the simplest image. So here, for us to continue our development, we have dropped the animals. the qualities of the animals, the instinct, the I'm gonna kill you because I'm hungry, right?
Okay.
Maybe think about it, and I don't know.
Come again.
That's as far as I can go. I'm not sure if I can do any
Yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah. Thank you very much.
What is? Do you know? I reckon those people on the spectrum will really help us to solve this cloud drama that we are creating.
When we come again, we come and we carry the information that we experienced in the past life, like to like a more full person, let's say. I don't know.
I mean, when we look at karma and incarnation, and I'm know very little about it, um, everything that we do here, I mean, we are in a process. For me, it's very clear that we are all in a process of development. So everything we do here is towards that development, our development and the earth's development, and the angels, archangels, thrones, curiosities, cherubims, whatever you want to call them. Every single being is in a process of development. It's the natural process. So in that process, we are moving towards polarities, right? We are Victor, wake up. Victor leaves the bed. Victor goes out into his day. Victor goes back to the bed. Victor is changed. You agree?
Uh-huh.
Victor wake up. Victor goes out to my day. Victor goes back into bed. Victor changed. Victor goes into another sphere. Victor sleeps. Victor comes back. Victor's changed a bit. Ta 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 ta. To infinitum. Whatever. 97 years old. Die. Right? Victor has changed. But thinking as a fractal, this 97 years here maybe is equivalent to one day of Big Victor's life. And then Big Victor comes again. And Big Victor comes again. Tera, tera, tera. So everything we do, every time we read a book, every time we dig a hole, every time we work, we are getting changed, and we are, in a sense, working into those processes. It's not all pretty, because Victor here on his day, kicked the cat because he peed outside of the box, told his wife something bad, and whatever. So Victor did a few good things, but Victor did a few bad things too, or not so good things. That Victor will have to resolve it. So at some point in time, it needs to be resolved because there is no going away. Everything is recorded. Everything is marked. It's marked in time, or it's marked in the Akasha, as Steiner and other. There is a place where things get recorded, where we go, yeah, that wasn't so good, and then part of when we reincarnate, we go, okay, man, on that burning process. In theory, let's say if I live 90 years, after my death, I've got 30 years of burning, in a sense, of going through what my life has been, what I have done good, yeah, but a lot of what I have done bad. What harms have I done to George when I told him that he was an asshole? Or when I went to someone and did something like that. So there is all those wrongs that I've done through my life, that through Kamaloka, which is the process of burning, which is the seed forming process. It's a burning process. It's a distillation process where we kind of go into the kernel. I will see all the harms I've caused, which needs to be resolved. So we come back to resolve those questions. And then we resolve some, but we create others. And ta-da, 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 ta-da. So there is this process. And in theory, the angel is the one with our individual books. So when we die, we'll meet our angel, which in Steiner's language, he calls it the lower guardian. And he's going to go, so Victor, when you left here last time, you said you're going to do da, 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 da. What do you reckon about that? And life was hard, this happened, and then that. We start giving excuses or whatever. Of course not, and then the angel goes, right, man, you're going to have to solve it. How do you choose to solve it? And then I said, oh, look, I reckon I'll do this, this, and that. Off I come, and the journey begins. And it's the same. I mean, we can bring that into our daily basis. Today we did something wrong, and we know it. We told the coffee, the barista that the coffee was shit and fuck off. Something small like that. We know we didn't do good. And then we go home and we go, man, if we've got a little bit, if we are an animal, we go, fuck it, that person, and we never go back. But as we become humans, we start to reflect. What have I done? What happened? Why perhaps it happened? And then we do it again, and then we do it again, then we do it again, and then we say, I swear I'm never going to do it again, and then you do it again, and then we cut it up, and then one day we don't do it anymore. It's like, and it's bizarre. You probably, if you look at your life, there will be moments in life that you had a struggle that you couldn't do something. I don't know, play football, do kicks with the ball, or doesn't matter, do something, and then you do and you struggle, then you do and then you struggle, then you do, and then one day it just happened, and that's it. Learning how to drive a manual car. Now you drive 1,000 Ks and you don't even know how you got there. Have you had that feeling that you drove for like half an hour from home to work and you have no recollection of what happened? Zero? You're doing complex activity. You're changing gears, you're braking on but you have no recollection. You almost were not there. So this is kind of some of the learning processes that we go through.
Mm-hmm.
Big life, but it all can come into an agroforest, and I think that's the beauty of it. It is kind of allowing those forces to come along, but being an integral part of it. Having not the control, but having the power to see how things are coming. And once we start to get that, just to kind of conclude the day, before this tour, I'm actually gonna put this thing on YouTube. I don't know.
Actually, yeah. I don't know where it came from, but it came very natural. I can say.
I'm just gonna put it out there and see what happens. So once we start to get into that, we start to be able to bring more complexities. So 7, which is kind of the week, to me, that's more or less about time and rhythm as well. Because which kind of goes into the planets, and every planet has a different way of movement, a different cycle. While the moon is doing super crazy spins, Saturn takes 30 years to go around it. And so with that, we start to go, each day of the week has a different quality as well. So each planet has a different quality. So this to me, it's now going into the spirit in a different direction. By understanding those rhythms, those planetary, that kind of number 7 there, that things go up and then things go down, things are really quick, things are a little bit slow. We can start to now move into the non-physical. We can start to bring qualities into our plants, that are more planetary qualities. And with that, we can start to perhaps help plants that perhaps are not doing so well for whatever reason. If we start to interact with those plants and ourselves as well, I mean, it could be with anything. It's just that plants are there. It's just exposed, like, play with me. It's like, there is no secrets, there is no emotions. It's just an open thing. So it's the best thing to do research on how those things could be changing. We can start to bring now qualities into that, which are these kind of astral qualities, perhaps. I don't know the word. But we can start to bring the relationship of the natural world back into the relationship with the planetary realm. Because that's something that we need to continue our evolution. We need to, with all our tractors and pesticides and killing agents and we have completely disrupted how the natural world relates back into the bigger spheres. And that is, to really go down to how we become this conversation, it goes down into the soil. According to biodynamics, that is the vehicle that digests planetary cosmic information, goes into the soil, into the relationships there of calcium, silica, clay, aluminum, and things like that. And through the roots, which is, if we think that human beings are like that, and a plant is an upside down human being, in a sense that, it looks the same, but here is its sense organs. And here is our sense organs. And this part here, the soil, is, a diaphragm. Not gonna spell that. And there is two words here, right? And we live in the digestion, or better word, the metabolic wood. We live in the belly of the planet. So the cosmic, the planet here, needs to go into the soil, and the soil needs to be alive. It needs to be alive. So that information then gets given to the plants so it can connect back to its archetypal, that it's not incarnated, it's still in a different realm. So to me, this is biodynamics. Biodynamics starts here almost. Of course, it talks about all of the other, but in terms of the practices of doing the preps, of relating consciousness and thinking about the rhythms and thinking about how things are going, is that we can now start to act not only ecologically, but our actions can also start to reflect cosmic influences. And so we have the rhythms of the planets there that I reckon really help us to, find qualities, because the planets, as the light from the sun, which is kind of the living force, what keeps everything alive, comes through, it gets filtered, it gets changed by the planets. And so they give a different quality through those. And with that, different qualities, different spiritual qualities, different cosmic qualities, different peripheral qualities, they will have different substances, right? They will give rise to something different. And then we have the 12 constellations. Which now go into an even bigger rhythm, an even more macro rhythm. So I reckon if we can start to do that process and really understand that, one, we are part of the whole thing, but that the whole thing is ultra complex. And it's so exciting because, how bored it will be if it was just cause and effect. You do this and that always happens. How many times can you play that game? 2, 3. Yeah, drop the rock, rock fell. Yeah, drop the rock, rock fell. Yeah, got it. It would be nice if you dropped the rock and every time you did something different. You just keep throwing that rock forever, right? You just keep playing with those forces and moving into something better. And you know what better is. You know what beautiful is. You know what right is. You know what, you know what it is. I don't have to, we all know, those qualities. It's just that we have all those, as Dennis Klotchek talks about it, we are always doing kung fu with the devil inside of us. One thing is to be conscious of something. The other thing is to act upon it. It's so difficult. It's and act every single second of the day if you can. But if it at least one moment a day, that's great. 2 moments a day, awesome. 3, 4, no, no, no. And if we start to make our days better and better and better. And I tell you what, our life gets so much better too. It's it has a lot of practical applications to start to understand that that complexity and how things could be coming, but also going, hey, I don't know. Two very powerful words that once I've learned to use them, change my life. Maybe, and I don't know. It solves every problem.
Voila.
Just start to bring those into consciousness, and you start to relate to things a lot better. So we are open to something new, maybe, and we are never going to be cocky because we don't know anything. And once we go back into that image of the what we know here and everything that it could be, once we understand that image, and then once we understand that we can never be 100% right, then life becomes lighter on those human relationships. Not easier, but hopefully lighter. And then we start to find this place in the middle. It's all context specific, time specific, resource specific, everything is specific. There is no generalities in that sense, that there is one thing that applies everywhere and every time, because things move in time as well. Even though, I mean, how much resistance are we getting into pesticides and herbicides? That's it. That's exactly it. Is life moving into time? They move into time, and something that would always kill now fits them. It's kind of nuts, but it's the beauty of the game. It never ends. So can you handle never ending? It's another big question. Meaning, can you handle not having an answer and having a question always open? It it's another way of seeing it. Welcome to the real world. But that's it. It's the pathway that I have found that seems very, very exciting, very challenging as well in all levels, physical levels, emotional levels. But it's this. In the end of the day, it's about our own development. And look, and that's the thing, and it's not about saying, hey, I'm right. It's just going, maybe. Maybe. Or what if it's a nice one, like, what if the world was different? What if, we could do something like, what if there was a throne and a cherubim and an archangel helping us out? I can't prove it otherwise. I can prove that there isn't. So why not? Maybe. Take care.